Let's take a look on how to divide polynomials. So let's start with the simple division where we are simply dividing a polynomial by a monomial, like this example. So as you notice, we have 6r squared s squared plus 3r s squared minus 9r squared s, and this is a trinomial being divided by a monomial. So what's the proper method in solving a simple division like this? What we need to remember is the distribution process. So we need to distribute the divisor, which is 3rs, to each of the terms we have in the dividend. So doing that, we have 3r squared s squared all over 3rs. And then, as you notice, we have a positive there. So that means you have plus. We have, again, the term 3rs squared all over 3rs minus, because that is a subtraction that we have there. So 9r squared s all over 3rs. And what are we going to do here? So by the cancellation process and the lessons that we already know about the rules on exponent, when we have the same base or we are dividing the same base, we just have to subtract the exponent. So this simply means that dividing now your 6 by 3, you have 2, and then r squared divided by r, so we have simply r, and then s squared divided by s, that simply gives us an s. And then plus, we can now cancel the 3 here, so that's 3 over 3 is 1. R divided by r is also equivalent to 1, and s squared over s will simply give us the s. And then the last term where you have 9 divided by 3, that's of course 3, and you have r squared again divided by r, so that's basically just r, and the s will automatically be cancelled. Okay, so let's have another example. Suppose you have 12x squared y minus 3x all over 3x. So the common mistake of students here is the fact that they actually remove the last term. So usually if you give them this, they will just, or you will just answer the 4x and then 4xy. Okay, but remember, this is a different term that we are having, so that when you answer this, it should be 12 canceled by the 3 or divided by 3, that gives you a 4, and then you have x squared divided by the x, again we have an x, and you have the y. Now we have dividing 3x by 3x, the answer that we will be getting there is equivalent to, you have a negative, so negative 1. Now, what if, for example, there is a certain case wherein you cannot divide, let's say, for instance, you have 3x raised to the second power, and then there is y, and you are dividing this by, let's say, this is 21, and then x cubed y raised to the second power. Okay, so if you are given this case, you have to remember that we have to follow where the greatest exponent is. So answering this, we can now have 3 and 21 being cancelled by 3. So we have now the simplified form of 3 and 21 as 1 over 7. So we have here x raised to the second power and x to the third power. So comparing now the exponent, this is a 2 versus 3. So since 3 is higher than the 2 that we have, so we need to take note that it has to stay in the denominator. And so with the exponent that we are having in your numerator or denominator of y. So in this case, what are we going to have? We will simply have 1 in your numerator, and what we have in the denominator is 7, and then subtracting now 3 and 2, that becomes x raised to 1, or simply your x, and y raised to 2, and of course this is understood to have 1 as an exponent. That will now become xy. So the answer that we have here is simply 1 over 7xy. So that is how we deal with division of polynomials by monomials. Okay, now what if we are dividing by what we call polynomial by polynomial? So we will have first the long division process. Okay, so as you notice, you have x squared minus 5x minus 24 here. So we have x squared minus 5x minus 24, and we are dividing this time by a binomial x plus 3. Okay, so what is the important thing that you have to remember when you are dividing by a trinomial or a polynomial by a binomial? So the first thing that we have to take note is the first term that we have. So the only concern that we have is the first term in the dividend, and divide that by the first term in your divisor. So dividing x squared by x, so again that is with the use or the law of exponent, the answer that we will be getting there is simply x, because you have to subtract the existing exponent. So that's all that we have to do. Now after that, you have to remember the basic method in dividing numbers. So we have to divide. After division, we multiply. After multiplication, we have to subtract, and then after that, we need to bring down the next number to be divided. So basically, this has the same method, okay, the division algorithm. So x multiplied by x. So after dividing, we multiply now your x and x, and that will give us x raised to the second power. Okay, but remember, there is an existing positive 3 here, which means that this x will also be multiplied with this positive 3, so that we will be getting a positive 3x. Okay, so there you have now your positive 3x. So again, after dividing, the main concern is only the first term, x squared divided by x. So our answer is x. After having the answer here, we need to multiply, but in multiplying, you have to multiply it to all the terms that you have in the divisor. Okay, and then after the multiplication, as I have said, you have to subtract. So when you subtract, you are getting this whole thing, and you have to subtract that from the dividend x squared minus 5x. Okay, so having now x squared minus x squared, basically our aim is to remove this or to cancel. That will already be equal to 0. Now when you have negative 5x minus your positive 3x, so don't forget to apply your rules on subtracting integers. So again, when you subtract, you have to change this to its opposite. So this becomes negative, and change the operation to addition. So that means you will have an answer here, which is negative 8x. Okay, so after subtraction, again, we have the next step, which is to bring down. So what are we going to bring down here? It will be the negative 24. Okay, so we have to bring down the negative 24. Now, the next aim is to remove the negative 8x. So it will just be the negative 8x that will be divided by the existing first term in your divisor. So negative 8x divided by x is of course equal to -8. Okay, so since we already have your quotient here, which is -8, we will then again multiply the -8 to each of the term in your divisor. So again, what happens here, you will have a -8x. So our aim to eliminate the 8x is satisfied. And then having the -8 and the +3, that will result to a +24, or a -24, I should say. So we can now have the subtraction process. So again, when we subtract, we need to change this operation to addition. Okay, and then change it to its opposite. So the opposite signs will now become positive, positive, making them 0. So again, in this case, we don't have any remainder. Okay, so our division is exact. So the answer for this is simply x minus 8. Okay, we can actually check that by factoring. So we know that when you multiply x plus 3 and multiply it by x minus 8, okay, if you already have your knowledge on the multiplication of polynomials, we are using the FOIL. So x with the x is x squared. Okay, and then doing the last term, we have 3 and the -8, that is equal to the -24. And if you are going to look for the middle term, that is the 3x, and the other one is a -8x. So adding now 3x and -8x, that results to -5x. Okay, so actually you can also solve this by making use of your factoring. Okay, but this is actually the long process of dividing polynomials, so that if you cannot do it mentally, at least you know how to divide your polynomials. Okay, let's have another example. Okay, so here you have h cubed minus 11h plus 28, and then multiplied by h minus 4 quantity raised to -1. So you might think that this is a multiplication statement, but then again, you have a -1 as an exponent. So we have to remember that if you have a -1, this simply means that this quantity being raised to a -1 will be obtained as, or will be equated as its reciprocal. Okay, again, the h that we are having there, may I just make that clear? So h minus 4 raised to -1 is actually equivalent to its reciprocal 1 over h minus 4. So again, that is one law of your exponent. So this simply means that you are actually dividing this number by h minus 4. Okay, so we have now h minus 4 as our divisor. Now you will notice in this example that we actually inserted one variable, that is your h squared. Okay, because trying to evaluate now your given, we simply have h raised to the third power minus 11h plus 28. Okay, and then that's being divided by this binomial. Now the danger of not putting the 0h squared between the h raised to 3 and the h raised to 2 will be explained later when I will be giving you the solution for this. Okay, so let's try to figure out our answer for this. So we have h cubed divided by h. So again, we simply copy the h, and that will be now raised to the second power. y2, we have to subtract 3 with the existing 1 as the understood exponent of the h. Okay, so after dividing, again, we need to multiply. So again, the answer that you will be having here is h cubed, and multiplying this -4 with the h squared, of course, you will have your -4 h raised to the second power. Okay, so you have seen here now the importance of putting the number or the exponent which is actually missing in between terms. Okay, because if you are going to do the multiplication, there will be a certain answer that will be with that exponent. So it will be difficult if you will be putting this quantity to other parts in your solution. Okay, that will just be chaotic. Okay, so again, if there is a certain terms in your polynomial and there is a missing exponent, you have to complete it by inserting that with certain with the same the exponent which is missing, but don't forget to put 0 as the numerical coefficient. Okay, so after having that, you will now multiply or subtract. Okay, so we have to subtract, meaning this will already be cancelled, and subtracting positive 0h squared minus negative 4h squared, again this becomes positive, so we have to be careful on our integers. So 4h raised to the second power. Okay, the next step is we have to bring down. So there you have 11h. Okay, and then again we are going to divide. So our purpose is for us to have a product later which is equivalent to 4h raised to the second power. So simply 4h squared divided by 4h. Again, the answer that you will be getting is positive 4h. Okay, next step, we multiply. So 4h with the h is now equal to 4h raised to the second power. And we have 4h with the negative 4. So that will give us a negative 16h. Okay, so we will now go to subtraction. Again, when we subtract, well, we have a subtraction there. But if you have to change that to addition, this will turn out into negative, while this one turned out to be positive. So this simply means that this is already cancelled. And the answer that you will be getting here is 5h. We are adding integers with different signs, so we have to subtract them. Okay, and then next step is you have to bring down the positive 28. Okay, so we have here now your 5h plus 28, and we are dividing it by simply the h. So 5h divided by h is equal to 5. So we have there positive 5. And multiplying 5 with the h, of course, the answer that we will be getting is 5h. And 5 with the negative 4, that will result to a negative 20. Okay, so we are now going to subtract once again. So you are going to subtract this whole quantity. And the answer that you will be getting, again, we have to change the sign to its opposite and then proceed to addition. So this becomes 0. And the 28 there added now to 20 is equivalent to 48. So this is an example of a certain problem with remainders. Okay, so it's very basic. Now, what are we going to do if that is the case? There is a remainder here, therefore we will just write plus. Okay, this will now be the numerator, so 48 over, okay, your divisor, which is h minus 4, will just be copied, so h minus 4. Okay, remember that one because this is actually compared to simply just dividing or changing your mixed number to, or improper fraction to a mixed number. For instance, you have 15 over 4, right? So you just divide that 15 over 4. So when you do 15 divided by 4, of course, the answer that you are getting there is 3. Correct? So 3 times 4 is equal to 12. Now, in this case, we don't have any, we don't have a remainder. So if we wish to write it in terms of a certain fraction, again, the 3 will just be the numerator and then the 4 becomes the denominator. So that's basically the thing that we are doing here. Again, the remainder becomes the numerator, and then you have here h minus 4 being the denominator. And don't forget, whatever the symbol that you have here, it's positive, so there is a positive sign. Now, if this happens to be a negative, you will put there the negative and then 48 all over h minus 4 because this is taken as a quantity. Okay, so that is how we divide polynomials. You see, or when you have polynomials divided by a monomial, and then the polynomial by a polynomial using the long method. Okay, I will be explaining the other method, which is the synthetic division method, in another video.